Okay. Now we're gonna watch some YouTube here. Top 10 scary Ouija boards that destroyed lives. Oh fuck, a marathon. Alright.
Starting us off at number 10, Reddit user Turtle Shell Magic's story. Now this one is crazy, referring to her best friends as M and L for the sake of the story goes as follows. At M's house, the gang was using a Ouija board and asked how the spirit died, to which it responded murder. When they asked the spirit for the details of the murder, it responded, not I. It also gave a name which the user couldn't remember and a date from the 1800s. Then the mood in the room just changed. The planchette was ripped out of the girl's hands and flew across the room. At that point, they put the box away and stopped playing with it. A week later, M's mother suddenly passed away from cancer. It was a total surprise as no one knew she was ill. Not long after, L's mom was hospitalized for having a severe drinking problem, and that same week, this user's mother had an emergency hysterectomy surgery. They claim the board must have had something to do with it, and ever since that night, they've heard voices, footsteps, and seen dark shadows. It'd been 9 years and the Reddit user still felt as if they were haunted.
Coming in at number 9 is the Mars Volta. Now, the Mars Volta was an American progressive rock band that were active from 2001 to 2012. The guitarist of the band, Omar, bought an antique Ouija board at a flea market in Jerusalem as a birthday gift for the lead singer of the band, Cedric. Now, the two started playing with the board in the tour bus after their shows, and they ended up contacting a spirit named Goliath. Its responses were innocent at first, but Omar got nervous since Goliath started making threatening demands, and Cedric was getting more and more obsessed with contacting him. Omar ended up secretly burying the board, but that did nothing to stop Goliath. That usually never does. The band started being terrorized with mishaps and chaos after that point. Equipment started having severe problems, Omar's studio was wiped out in a freak flood, their drummer quit, and Cedric suffered from a critical foot injury. All this happened in such a short period of time, and it all happened after Omar got rid of the Ouija board, that he was convinced that these things were happening because of Goliath. And boy, you are not wrong.
Now at 8, a story by an anonymous person titled If You Play With Fire. This one is short and sweet as well, yet absolutely terrifying, and for the sake of context, we'll name her Jessica. 10 out of 10, a life is ruined here. So our friend Jessica here played with a Ouija board, not thinking much of it, getting dark and scary replies from names she didn't know. One claimed to be Jessica's uncle, but she didn't think much of it. Jessica would play with the homemade Ouija board quite regularly, and a few weeks later, things got weird. Out one night at a club, Jessica claims she ran into an old friend she hadn't seen in 2 years, and he told her he's got something weird to tell her. I quote, "I went to see a reader. She told me that she had a message for a friend of mine, a woman. She said your name. She told me to tell you to stop playing with the Ouija board because you are going to get burnt. Does that make sense to you?" End quote. Following the incident, Jessica claims to have never touched a board again and is permanently scarred.
Filling at number 7 slot is Recess. This was shared by Patty Vasadi on Facebook, who said when her son was in grade 4, he came home excited because he and his friends were playing with a Ouija board at recess. What the hell? I feel like I didn't even know what a Ouija board was in that grade. I barely was even human at that point. How was he playing with a Ouija board? Either way, the son shared that he and his friends were talking to a 13-year-old boy who had apparently been alive during the Civil War. Now, Patty was wary about the situation but brushed it off as nothing really serious. However, a few days later, her son had played again and came back to tell her that the spirit was telling them that they should join him and that they could all be friends. That's when Patty was like, oh, hell no. That's when Patty was like, enough is enough, sweet pea, enough is enough. And called the school and was like, nah, it's not on. Take that Ouija board away. These boys aren't playing with it anymore. And so they didn't. Now, at number 6 is The Girl. This one comes from 29-year-old Glenn from Pennsylvania, who said he used to communicate with an unknown entity quite a bit in his home. One time he saw a full-body apparition of a little girl wearing peasant-like clothing from another era. The girl was smiling before she started screaming and then crying and then vanished into thin air. Intrigued as hell, Glenn did some research and actually asked his neighbors, who were also historians, if they knew anything. It turns out there used to be a 10-year-old girl that lived in his house in the late 1800s. They described her and it was exactly the ghost he had seen. Annalise had died due to TB back in the day, so that's who he had been communicating with all that time. But after he saw her apparition, she never communicated with him again, no matter how many times he tried. She was like, it's over. It's over. Coming in at number 5 is Jake. This one's from Kristen, who said one summer her and her friends met the spirit of a boy called Jake through their Ouija board. The friends were skeptical and didn't really believe he was real, so they kept agonizing and teasing him to prove that he was. Then Jake spelled out, "Go to your room," since everyone was in the basement. Kristen then went to her room to find her crayons scattered everywhere and her notebook opened on her bed with Jake scrawled on it in big letters. And it clearly wasn't any of the friends, since everyone was in the basement at the time and no one else was home. Now the girls freaked out and broke the board into pieces, thinking it would stop the evil. Did it? Did it stop the evil? Let me know, Kristen. Comment down below. Kristen's
Slide into number 4, Reddit user No Springs. When our friend here was about 12 or 13 years old, they decided to get together with some friends and play Ouija. At first, the board started spelling things out that apparently scared them, and then wrote out, "I could see you through the window," followed by, "I could see you through his eyes," and then, "I'm under the car." Somehow this group of brave teens mustered up the courage to go outside into the dark night and check under the car, where they found a hissing black cat. Bad vibes. Of course, scared to death, the group of friends ran back inside, which is when the power immediately shut off. A few minutes later, it turned back on, but the group decided to stay up all night long and never touch the board again.
Filling on number 3 slot is Careful What You Wish For. This one really gave me the creeps, to be honest, and was shared by Back in Om Nom Nam on Reddit. They shared that about 15 years back, his sister had some friends over and they were all watching a horror movie in the basement. Already the start of a very horrific night, just by the sounds of that. The friends also had a Ouija board with them, so they of course tried it. Dramatically, they started cussing at it, calling it fake and so forth, and then went back to watching the movie. Out of nowhere, all the lights and electricity goes out in the house, and they all start screaming their heads off, which is, an accurate response. The TV then comes back on, blaring this awful noise, and at this point, the girls are hysterically crying. The TV then turns off, and when it turns back on, the display is completely black, except for the words, "This is not a game anymore." I would have shot myself at that point. And at this point, everyone runs out of the house, completely forgetting their dog in there. When they finally build up the courage to come back, their dog was waiting on the front porch with the darkest eyes ever and the look of pure evil.
Now at number 2, Ouija prediction. When Inez was 12 years old, she and her friend Becky decided it was Ouija time in her house located in Cambridge, Minnesota. Middle of the day, the girls were using the Ouija board Inez got for Christmas, and they asked what Inez was in her past life. The board answered, spelling out Rebecca Lynn Peltzermiller was there. Inez had no idea who this was, so she didn't think much of it, and asked the board if she'll meet anyone from her past life here. The board answered yes, and then upon the girls asking who, the board spelled out Vincent Daniel Douglas. Fast forward 2 years, Inez has yet to meet someone with this name. She joins a production of the musical Annie, and the lead opposite her was named Danny Douglas. Inez claims although the two had never met before, she felt as if she had known him her entire life. Upon remembering her Ouija board encounter, Inez asked if Danny Douglas was his real name, to which he replied that his first name was Vincent, and the name was a family name that was passed down through generations. Talk about life-changing.
And finally, at number 1 is Close the Session. That is rule number 1, you guys, of playing with a Ouija board. Go wild, do you, live your best life, but do not just get up